Product Stacks is brought to you by Storyblok, one of the world's fastest growing headless CMSs. A headless CMS like Storyblok separates the back end from the front end. By moving to an API-based CMS like Storyblok, you can publish your content to any front end, whether that's your marketing website or directly inside your product. Developers love Storyblok because they can use it with any front-end framework they prefer and create components that can be reused anywhere as content blocks, cutting development time in half. Content teams are excited about the discussions feature built directly into Storyblok's visual editor. No more Slack or email threads to discuss content changes. Join 86,000 developers plus companies like Harvard Business School, Adidas, Netflix, Oatly, and Pizza Hut who all use Storyblok by trying a free demo at storyblok.com/department of product. Go to storyblok.com/department of product. That's Storyblok with a K at the end /department of product. Joining us on Product Stacks today is Suji Kim, and Suji is a growth product manager at LinkedIn. So thanks very much, Suji, for joining us. And I know that you've prepared a bit of a deep dive into the tools that you use every day. So we're really looking forward to getting to know what's in your product stack and how you do product personally at LinkedIn. So welcome, Suji, and thanks very much for taking part. And before we delve in, do you want to give us a little bit of a background as to who you are?
Yeah, sounds good. Okay. And again, thanks for having me, Richard. My name is Suji. As Richard mentioned, I am currently a growth PM at LinkedIn. I joined LinkedIn in January, so it's still early and still new, but I'm learning about my different product management tools at LinkedIn on a daily basis. So I thought it might be interesting for aspiring PMs or already PMs to share some of the tools that I use on a daily basis to get my work done. So I will share a little bit about my background and talk about my journey in product management before sharing some of the tools that I use.
Yeah.
So I actually got my first product management job after I graduated from MBA, and the job was at Amazon. And I worked at two different teams at Amazon across the retail team and also last mile delivery team. And given that it was really my first PM job, it really taught me about different product management tools, like what are PMs use for design, right? Collaboration or communication. That was the first job really taught me about it. And moreover, what I also learned is I can really use these tools to express my thought, form the strategy, and bring all the cross-functional teams together. So that was also a learning for me. And then in the middle of when I was working at Amazon, the COVID actually hit. And I think it changed a lot of things for a lot of people, including myself, right? And the way that we work was also not an exception. And this is when Zoom and Slack became, I think, everyone's best friends. And I love physical whiteboarding. I don't know about you, Richard, if you love doing whiteboarding with engineering team, right? Brainstorming ideas as well.
I'm exactly the same. Absolutely. Was always just one of those people who would lock myself in a room for 2 hours in the afternoon with the team and be like, let's thrash out this problem.
Yeah, right.
So
everything is done. Yeah, I really miss that. But I think with pandemic and everything else, we kind of stopped having those physical whiteboarding sessions and moments. And actually, even when Zoom became super popular and became a household name in the early pandemic days, I actually didn't use Zoom at Amazon. I don't know if they changed, but at least when I was there, Amazon had its own video conferencing tool called Amazon Chime. So I actually didn't have to use Zoom at all.
How was that? Did it work very well? Was it resilient? Zoom did really well in the pandemic because I guess it was one of the most.
I'll be honest with you, I was not a big fan of the other Amazon conferencing tool.
Okay.
It had a very limited functionality. I think it was also fine. I think it was fine because before pandemic, right, maybe all we needed is just a very simple conferencing tool, right, that you can just join the call and talk with a bunch of folks. But I think with pandemic, we needed much more than that, not just a video conferencing tool, maybe additional functionality like messaging and also an option to host multiple people. Imagine you're having all hands at Amazon with a video conferencing tool, right? It has to be be able to handle those kind of traffic and stuff like that. So yeah, It was not bad, but I don't think it was the best tool, I think.
Fair enough. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and in the middle of pandemic, I also changed the company. So I actually left Amazon and then I joined LinkedIn. And I joined LinkedIn as a fully remote employee. So I actually don't need to go to the office. Also, although I live in Seattle and there's a small office that LinkedIn has. So I'm fully remote. And I guess I also moved to a different company, right? And then I got to know a whole set of different product management tools. Like what I used at Amazon, some of it were not even an option for LinkedIn. Also, I'm a growth PM in the international team at LinkedIn. So our team is truly international. What I mean by that is my coworkers are located like across the globe. So I work day to day with my coworkers in Brazil, like France, Germany, India.
And how have you found the transition into a fully remote role? I know it was an initial shock for everyone when we transitioned in the pandemic, but would you say that it's something that you prefer versus being in the office? How do you feel about remote work?
My journey was I actually liked going into the office, I think, before the
Right.
pandemic. I mean, we didn't even think about like what is remote, right? Everyone's going in the office, that was a norm.
Yeah.
So when the COVID actually hit, it was a little bit hard for me to like even adjust. I will be honest with you, I didn't even have a desk at home because
No,
I
yeah.
get my work done right in the office and I come back.
Yeah.
So even from those like furniture setup, like I had a lot of things to adjust, like mentally, physically, and stuff like that. But I think 2 or 3 months maybe later, it was just fine for me. And right now, I believe I'm like fully adjusted to be like a remote employee. So I actually want to now share some of the PM tools that I use, along with some tips that I have. And
Perfect.
before we get started with some of the details, I want to share a quick takeaway so we know what to expect. So overall for PM tools, I think it's important for us to really think about why are we even using these tools? And I think fundamentally we use these tools to work more efficiently, to get the work done in the short amount of time. But I don't think the PM tools, it's a magic wand. What I mean by that is, I don't think PM tools can really make a bad PM to be the best PM. It just allows you to do more efficiently, but it's not a magic tool and you expect everything will be just perfect, right? It's about how you use it and how you manage it. I also think you often don't get to choose your own tools, right? As I mentioned at Amazon, I didn't even have an option for Zoom because Amazon had its own video conferencing tool. So a lot of times, like it depends, I think, highly on the company that you work in, right? Whether the company has license for these type of tools or not. Also, tools will and I think can change as well. And that's also what I learned when I joined LinkedIn, right? Because the tools that I used at Amazon were not available. There were actually alternatives. So I learned about like how to use the alternatives. But yeah.
I think that's a really good point you make about the fact that you don't get to choose your own tools. So this series that we're doing is all about, the tools that PMs at real companies use in their real day-to-day world. But as you say, that isn't necessarily a reflection on their personal choice of tool for getting the job done. It's
That's
more
right.
about,
Yeah.
which companies have managed to get buy-in from the CTO or the CPO
Yeah,
and
yeah,
to sell their
exactly. I agree. 100%. Yes. Yeah. So now I will share some of the tools that I use at LinkedIn. So the first tool is an Outlook. So for Outlook, I use for two use cases mainly. So the one use case is email. And I think it also very highly depends on the company, org, and the team. But at least in my team at LinkedIn, we use Outlook mainly for, let's say, formal or official communication. So what I mean by that is, let's say I have a question to my engineering manager about a bug that I found, right? Hey, when do you think it will be fixed? I would not use email. I would rather use like instant messaging tool to ask him the question or her the question. So I use maybe more for like official communication. Let's say if I need to communicate something to our leadership team, right, or my manager about something, I would like to use email. And I also use Outlook for calendar. And I think when we have so many things to work on, managing the calendar is super important. And at least at LinkedIn, like we use, Outlook for both email and calendar purposes.
Awesome. And you also mentioned that you use this for managing your time and blocking out focus time. So have you got any kind of tips that you can share on how you might do that as well? Because I know that a lot of people like to just kind of do like deep work blocks where they block out times not available for meetings where you can just focus on a specific task. Is that something you do?
I do. So I do love to block some time out because otherwise it's really hard for me to get the work done. Even when I'm working remotely, even when I don't have coworkers just popping by my desk and ask questions, right? I don't have any of that, but still, like I have a lot of distraction and messages, right? So for calendar, I block at least 3 2-hour blocks per week for undisturbed product thinking. So it's literally my focus time. Also, at the end of the day, I look at calendar for the next day. And what I do is I really look at each meeting quickly. And then what I like to do is when I don't think that I'm really needed for the meeting, I try to remove myself by just declining meeting or just asking the meeting organizer, is it okay if I don't join this meeting? Because maybe I can give you an answer, right? Via email or any other tools. Also, I would like to avoid back-to-back meetings. It's actually something hard and I'm still working on it, but I think swinging from like one meeting to another without a break creates just mental strain. And I think it reduces your efficiency. So I like to have like at least like 5 or 15-minute break and buffer between meetings. I think that's helpful. Lastly, some meetings, I think they're booked without a clear outcome, right? When you look at it, you don't know what this person is trying to do with you. So to make sure that I don't waste their time and my time, I ask people to add like a clear outcome. Hey, what are we trying to get out of here, right? Why am I needed? That also saves like precious time of your week.
Yeah, I think they're all brilliant tips, definitely.
Yep. So the next tool is Google Workspace. So we do use Google Workspace at LinkedIn. And we use Google Docs, Sheets, Slides. I actually didn't have any of these at Amazon, so it was something new. For Google Docs, I use it for writing product requirement documents, write a quick one-page doc, right? Something that I can collaborate with my cross-functional teams on new project idea, getting feedback, adding comments. It's just easy doc sharing option, I think. Also, I use it for taking notes for myself as well. I know a lot of people maybe use like different tools like Notion or what else, like Evernote. I just use Google Doc for simplicity.
Yeah.
It just works for me.
It's nice that you have that flexibility and that choice.
I do think so. I think it's a choice that the company is giving to the employee. Like that's how I would like to think about it, because some coworkers like do use like Microsoft 365. Like they like to use just like, Word, let's say. So I do see some coworkers having that flexibility as well.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah. And the next tool is Google Sheet, and usually use it when I have a new, let's say, project idea. I want to really get to know about the opportunity size, right? If you do this, like, what is the outcome? What is the return on investment, ROI? And also after I told you about the A/B testing and experiments that we do that a lot. And when we want to like analyze an impact, sometimes we use it just to, get the data. And for lastly, Google Slides, I use it when I want to visualize my idea, usually use it for a presentation for a wider audience. And when I work on project with a lot of like visuals, I also tend to use Google Slides.
Awesome. And just on the point around Google Sheets, we've had some PMs who've said that they think that SQL is like a fundamental part of the role, and other people who are not so keen on SQL. So in LinkedIn, or at least in your experience, are PMs expected to be able to not just analyze the data in something like Excel or in Google Sheets, but also to extract that using SQL, or is that not something that's expected?
That's a great question. I think it's not expected,
Yeah,
but it just makes your life so much easier if you were able to do it.
yeah.
So we do have tools for like SQL, and also we have our like own dashboard and like a chart tool, but it's
Okay.
all internal tool. I don't think we are using like a third-party software.
Right.
So we
Okay.
do have our own tool, and it just makes it so much for us to just analyze the impact. But yeah, to answer your question, I don't think it's mandatory for PMs like to know how to run SQL. I do work a lot with our data science partners.
Yeah.
They're expert in that. But sometimes, right, you just want like a gut check, right? You don't want to bother someone, and you just want to quickly know, hey, how is this going?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
it's
Exactly.
just useful. Yeah. The next tool is, I will maybe just quickly cover this. Everyone knows what these tools are, I think. Zoom and Microsoft Teams. Also, there's a flexibility. These tools are for video conferencing. And again, it really depends on the person that I'm talking to. Some folks really just love to use Teams for video conferencing, and they do that way. I usually mainly use Zoom because that's what I'm used to right now.
Yeah. And
Um,
have you got any tips on Zoom? Are there any kind of quirky things that you do or unique things that you do on Zoom or on Teams that you might be worth sharing? Any plugins that you use? Anything that's different?
I mean, I don't have a lot of like plugins for Zoom. I just love to keep my video conference to just like simple, but I do have like, reminder when there's a meeting, right? It just tells me like 20-minute, 30-minute before that there's a meeting popping up. So I don't actually miss it even though I'm working remotely, right? I don't have a coworker reminding me, hey, it's time to go to this meeting. Let's go together, right? I don't have any of that now. So it's just
Yeah.
helpful to have those like quick reminders.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. And the next tool is maybe my favorite tool, Slack for messaging. So Slack is a messaging app for work. And as I work remotely, all of my conversation happen on either Slack or Zoom. And I start my day literally by just catching up on messages in the morning. So it's really, really important
And because
tool.
you work with global teams, do you find that you have a constant stream of Slack messages?
Oh
Or
yeah,
yeah.
I do. Because when I finish my day, right, 5 or 6 p.m. like here Pacific time, and then a few hours later, India team starts working, right? And then the Europe team starts working.
Yeah.
So there's like a couple of things that I do, and I would love to share some of the tips. But yeah, one tip is obviously like I think it's snooze, like your like a reminders or messages, right? So you
Yeah.
don't get like disturbed by all these messages like 24/7, because literally you're right. Like even when I'm in bed, I can get like messages from coworkers located in like a different time zone.
Yeah. Because
Yeah.
I've always found, personally, I've always found Slack to be quite anxiety inducing because there is just this
Mm.
constant stream. I know at the start you were talking about, some communication is better done over email and some is best done over instant messenger. So I do, I do, I think that resolving problems over Slack is much more efficient often because it means you don't have to, it means you get rid of meetings. But then what I think for me, where it becomes quite anxiety inducing is when somebody is expecting a response immediately. And like as soon as you get that ping, I'm like, oh, quick, I have to quickly respond. So I don't know how does your interaction with Slack get balanced with your, let's say, your calendar management where you block out times where you're unavailable? Does that mean that in that block of time you wouldn't answer a Slack message, for example, or would you constantly answer them whilst you're at work?
Yeah, so whenever I have that like focus time, I also snooze my
Slack.
Slack. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think it's like because its calendar is integrated. And what I also do is we can like put a status message on Slack, right? I just
Yeah.
literally just tell them, hey, I'm in focus time, so my response may be delayed. So it's just helpful, right? Because maybe someone is really looking for an answer from me, something urgent, but if I'm in a focus time, it's just like etiquette, I think, for coworkers working with you as well. So I will share. So actually, I know there's like tons of videos and like YouTube videos about like Slack hacks and tips, but I use maybe like 5 things that really helps me for like productivity. So I'll quickly share those. So the first one is really just setting reminders. It's basic, but it's just so helpful. So you just like say like /remind, and then you can just type like what you want yourself or other people like to be reminded about. It's just helpful, and you can use it for like personal purposes, right? If you want to drink water or clean the house, like you just want to remind yourself about it. Also, if you want to remind your coworker to do something, right, on a maybe weekly basis, you can also set reminder using Slackbot. Also, like my best
Ah,
friend, Slackbot.
so
Yeah.
you can remind someone else to do something.
Yeah, you can do like
Ah,
/remind, add the person's like alias or the name, and then setting up this reminders.
that's cool. I bet they love that.
Yeah, yeah. And the other one is, so this view is my personal like Slack view, but you know, when we work, I have like so many channels and like messages. It's just so hard for me to like maybe sometimes read the conversations. And sometimes, let's say I have a Slack thread, right? Slack channel for my project, and they got like 50 people. But if I'm talking to someone else about that project and I want to quickly reference something that was discussed in that group Slack thread, Slack channel, what I do is I just open the conversation in a split view. And you can do this by clicking I have windows. So you click control, and then you can also like just click the Slack thread or channel that you want to have like split views. The other one is setting keywords alert. So usually, and in LinkedIn, we and what I like to do is I like to like name my project, right? Quickly, people can reference that. So let's say I'm working on a project Apple. I want to know like whenever someone mentions like Apple, I want to be like reminded about it. So it's good to just set up a keywords alert by just going into like preferences within Slack.
I had no
Um,
idea you could do most of this.
yeah, really.
Yeah, yeah. I didn't
Well, I'm
realize.
glad to
Yeah,
share
it's
this
good.
then. I thought
Yeah,
it might
very
be
useful.
too basic tool, but yeah, I'm glad you find it new
Yeah,
and
definitely.
interesting.
I literally just used to use I use Slack for just messaging people. I'm not very good with all the the cool stuff. This is
Oh,
really
I
helpful.
see.
But that's just me. Well, I'm sure people listening know some of these, but maybe let's see. I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah, please let us know if this is new
Yeah,
or
let us
not.
know.
Yes. And then this is also what I do. Again, I have so many Slack messages. Hey, people asking, hey, can you do that, right? Can you check on this stock? Can you check on this data? Sometimes I simply don't have enough time to do that. So what I also do is I want to remind myself about like a message that someone sent me, right? If Richard sent me, hey, Suji, can you check on the stock and get back to me? And I don't have time, I just simply just remind myself about a message like a few hours later when I have time. And then Slackbot reminds me to do that. Lastly, I think this is very useful. Scheduling a message to send later. And
Yeah.
I use this for my international team and my cross-functional team. So as an example, literally, I think last night before I log off from my laptop, I literally sent an email to my coworker working in Germany because I wanted her quick input on a project that I'm working on. So literally, I send her a message when she wakes up because I also don't want to bother her
Yeah.
personal time as well.
Does it tell you that does it allow you to send a message in the local time of the recipient? Can you say, well, this person is in Germany or whatever they might be, and send it at 9 a.m. their time, or is it all in? Don't worry if you don't
I
know,
think
but
they do. I think
yeah,
they do. I
I
think when
think
I
they do.
try to
Yeah.
like send it, but so you can see here, you can schedule a message for like a your time, right? But
Yeah.
I think it also tells you like what time it is for the other recipient.
Yeah, I think it does.
So
Yeah,
yeah, I think
super
it does,
helpful
right?
for someone in your setup where you've got colleagues all over the world.
I agree. I agree. The next tool is Figma. And I think also like a lot of folks know about it, but Figma is a web-based like design tool that I think has seen an explosion of growth over the last like few years. And with Figma, you can really access design files anywhere with internet access, which means you and your designer can share design files with just a link. So you don't need to worry about like PDF or exporting and sending an email, right? Or Slack messages. And because I'm a PM, I don't use Figma for creating designs mainly. I think that's what designers usually do. but I use Figma for 3 use cases. I will just quickly share those. So one use case is Figjam. So this is like a whiteboarding tool. So it's a
Yes.
whiteboarding feature, right? Within Figma, I
Yeah.
don't know, have you used it, Richard, as
Yes,
well?
I love Figjam. Yeah, it was.
Yeah, go
Yeah,
ahead.
it was one of the only kind of I really wanted to in a role I was doing a little while back. I really wanted to use Miro, but we weren't allowed.
Oh.
But the designers were allowed to use Figma. So then when Figjam released this, that meant that Figjam also became like a bolt-on that we were allowed to then use. So this was my like
Okay.
gateway
So it's
into
like a
recreate.
bonus tool for
Yes.
you.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
see.
But it's brilliant. I mean,
Yeah.
like you were saying at the start, when the pandemic hit, you lost the ability to do those whiteboard sessions, and tools like this just are a godsend.
Yep, I agree. And I think maybe this is the closest we can get, right? In terms of like, unless you go into, right, like a metaverse and really try to like interact
Yeah.
with coworkers, it's different. But yeah, FigJam is a whiteboarding feature. I use it for brainstorming project ideas with cross-functional teams in real time. You can like add your ideas, also like both favorite ideas by using like stamp. So it's just helpful tool. I also use it for collaboration. And usually the way it works is designer, let's say, work on a design and then send me a file, like URL, Figma file. And I just go in and I leave comment so designers can receive feedback directly on designs via comments, which is very helpful tool because it brings everyone together, like different parts of the team, including designers, product managers, even engineers. Lastly, I use it for creating wireframes. So even if you're not a designer, it's super easy for you to create wireframes and just interact with the tool. A lot of the project that I work on is very like a UI focus, meaning like it's how the users actually interact with the product. So it's very visual. So sometimes when I want to convey like, hey, like here's what I'm thinking about it for this project, right? That piece, because we don't also have a whiteboard, just creating wireframes by using Figma is very helpful.
Yeah, it's a
The
great tool.
Yeah.
Just the last question on Figma slash Figjam.
Mhm.
Do you tend to use it on a desktop, or do you use things like tablets as well? Because I remember when it first came out, I was really keen that I would use my iPad and start drawing with it. But actually, in reality, I never really used my iPad for it. I always just revert back to using my laptop. I wonder if that's the same for you.
I use laptop like 100%.
Yeah.
You know what? Actually, I haven't even thought about using it with the tablet until you mentioned it. But that's a great point.
Yeah,
Yeah. But wouldn't
they
it be easier? Have you tried it?
I've tried it, yeah, and in my head it would be easier, and I thought that I would definitely prefer the tablet experience, but I actually don't. For some reason, I don't know
Ah.
why. Like I really thought that I would, because I quite like scribbling things on the iPad. I really thought that I would quite enjoy it, and it is satisfying, but because I've got like a desktop with a monitor, it's not quite the same. But it's worth giving it a shot, because I think they've now optimized the FigJam app for tablets as well, so you can play around with it on there.
Oh.
So it's quite cool.
I didn't know that. That's a good tip. Yeah, that's a good tip. I'll try that with my
Yeah.
tablet. Yeah. So the last tool is Smartsheet. And there's like a lot of different so Smartsheet, by the way, is a project management tool.
Yeah,
And have you heard about it?
I've heard a lot about Smartsheets, but only through doing the podcast. And before this, I'd never heard of it. And I just maybe it's big in the US, but not in Europe yet. But
Oh, do
the
you
last
recall which company used that out of the folks that you talked
so
to?
yeah, Venmo uses it,
Oh,
and
okay.
PayPal.
Huh.
So they were the two, yeah, they were the people I spoke to about this, and I had to go
Interesting.
off and kind of Google it to figure out a bit more about it, because so is it a relatively new tool, or yeah, maybe just tell us more about it.
I don't think it's super new, but what I know is I think their headquarters is actually in Seattle. That's what I
Okay.
remember. Yeah. I don't know like tons about the company itself, but we use it like mainly we also have a like engineering team that uses it.
Yeah.
And it just because it's a project management tool, it's like everyone can work and collaborate in a real time. And we do have like engineering like stand-ups, right? Which I love to attend on a daily basis. Like we just get into a room and review the status of the project. It's so helpful for us to visualize where it is and where the blocker is, so we can identify those and also dependencies. So main use cases, like one, engineering team just checking and tracking the daily status.
Right.
And then two, as I mentioned, like I work very broadly with a lot of different cross-functional teams. So we have like a weekly meeting that I meet with cross-functional teams, and then we also review the Smartsheet, where everyone has its own like a line item, and then we can review all of those to make sure like we're on track for the project.
So is it something similar to Jira or Trello or something like that, or is it more like
Yeah,
an table? Or
yeah. We actually, so at LinkedIn we have Jira. We
Right.
actually use Jira, and we just transitioned to Smartsheet like, I don't know, maybe like 2 months ago. It's like new
Right.
thing that we are trying as a team because we thought it might be easier for us to collaborate.
Okay.
And yeah, just like any other like a new tool, it took us everyone some time to get used to Smartsheet, but it's just simple, very simple UI,
You like
simple
it?
tool. I do.
Do you prefer
Yeah,
it to to Jira?
I think so. I think so. It's just more collaborative and easier tracking, more visual, I think. Yeah. So
Yeah,
I
we'll have to
like
check
it.
it out. Awesome.
Yeah. So I think that's about it. So here is like a quick summary of what we discussed by category. And there are a lot of tools that I didn't cover here as well. As I mentioned earlier, at LinkedIn, we use a lot of internal tools for A/B testing, data analytics, including SQL, creating dashboard. We have our own tool. I also know that our engineering team use something called Confluence.
Yeah.
Have you heard about it too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So a couple of people have mentioned that as well, and I've used that
Yeah.
previously as well.
I don't use that often, I think. I don't. And then other options are, what else? When I was at Amazon, for doc collaborations, we use Quip. I think it's owned by Salesforce. It was actually
Okay.
very easy tool. It's like a Google Doc, but something very nimble.
What's it called?
And
Quip.
then Quip.
Quip. Sorry. Yeah.
QUIP. Yeah.
Okay.
Quip.
Awesome. And are
Yeah.
there, we were saying at the start, oftentimes these tools are kind of imposed upon us by the companies that we work for. Are there any tools that you kind of really wish, or are there any tools that you use in your personal life that you think, oh, do you know what, I'd really like to be able to use that at work, and you're not able to? Are there any other random tools that you use, products that you use day to day?
Yeah, so I think I mentioned Quip because I really like the tool.
Okay.
Yeah, you can think about it as like a Google Doc, but for tracking and for just follow-ups, it's just so easier, I think, Quip. It also got like a desktop app that you can download and like collaborate. So I miss that tool, but doesn't mean that like I cannot use like Google Docs to get my work done. But something that I think it was just nice, and you can create like easier like folders, and you can move right all docs about one project to that folder. It's just easier tracking. Of course, like Google Doc does it because it has like Google Drive like integration.
Yeah.
But maybe something that I was used to in a formal life, and I just miss it a little bit. I also know Amazon use Asana for project management.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you heard about it too.
Yeah.
But I think Smartsheet is more like nimble. I prefer Smartsheet over Asana. I think Asana was more like, to me, just too many features. Sometimes it's just hard for me to figure out what I really need to use.
Yeah, I think over the last kind of maybe like 3 or 4 years, they've added a lot of features to it, and it's become a bit more complicated to get simple things.
Yeah, that's what I think. That's what I
Yeah, I
think.
agree.
Yeah, it's a good balance. I'm pretty sure what they're figuring out, right? All these like third party PM tool companies, they're figuring out is it's a balance, right? Because when you have too much and too many functionality without like a clear and simple UI, it just confuses the user. But also users want more functionality. So it's like in a balance of their PM, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, yeah, this has been really, really helpful and really useful. And I'm sure our listeners will, and our watchers, viewers will find this really helpful as well. So thanks very much for taking the time to chat through these, and also give some really useful examples and some really helpful tips. I think people are going to have learned a lot from what you've shared today. So thanks very much. And if people want to follow you online, are there any spaces where people can do that?
Oh yes, I had one last slide, I think. Here, I'm on LinkedIn, of course.
Okay, perfect.
And feel free to connect with me or follow me. Here's my LinkedIn profile URL. Thank you, Richard. And I really enjoyed the conversation and the talk. And hopefully this was useful for
Yeah,
everyone.
absolutely.
And I would also love to watch what other PMs talked about. Yeah.
Awesome. So yeah, thanks very much.